Hi guys, Devin here, representing United Hour, and I am here with a very special guest here in Tampa. I'd like to introduce everybody right now to my buddy, Billy Grant.
Hey, how you doing, Dev?
Not bad, thank you so much for taking a part in this. It just so happened that fortune favored that you just happened to be in the States over this past week.
Coincidence, isn't it?
Of course. And it just so happens that we happen to be playing Brentford tomorrow actually. And Billy here is actually about to catch a flight over to England to be at the match tomorrow at Old Trafford.
That's right. I managed to squeeze in 7 days or 8 days in Florida. I left after Brentford's game against Tottenham, straight after the game. The Brentford fans were so happy with that result. To be quite honest with you, they tried their best to make sure that I missed my flight. There was all sorts of liquid refreshments being thrown down in the pub after the game, let's just put it that way. But I managed to get my flight. I think I slept about 7 hours on that plane over. I've been in Florida for the week. I've seen my family who live out here. I've been up to Tallahassee, been up here, been down, been across to Orlando as well. You know, I was there. I went to see the Charlotte FC play as well because my family is involved in that. They took me down to that, so I've got the old Charlotte FC shirt as well, which is quite good. Unfortunately, they didn't win. Orlando beat them, but I have to admit, I was very, very impressed with the Orlando support behind the goal. They made some noise, you know what I'm saying? And they weren't overly friendly as well to the Charlotte fans. There's a few expletives. So I've done that, and then I'm here today. You can hear they're literally right by the airport now. We're here today, and like I said to you, I'm going back for the Man United game tomorrow, and I'm 100% this season. So I'm just fingers crossed I don't miss my flight. The plane isn't snowed off or anything like that, and I managed to get there, and I'm going straight to Old Trafford, so it's all good.
And you're going to have quite a few transfers once you get to London tomorrow, correct?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. We get to London, King's Cross, Doncaster, Sheffield. Listen, there's a backdoor route because people who may be based in the UK know that they always seem to put rail replacement on the day where there's lots of football matches. If Man United or Liverpool or whoever's playing in Wembley, they'll make sure that the trains don't run. They just do it. I don't know why they do this. So we're all going up to Manchester, but there's no trains running, so we have to find a backdoor route to get there. But listen, we go 100%. We're there anyway, so we'll find a way to get there.
And so now, I know this is hard to believe right now, for the few people who actually don't know a bit about you, tell us a little bit about your Brentford fandom, and tell us also where we can find you on social media.
So, basically, I've been supporting Brentford all my life. 40-odd years, supported Brentford, seen them from the lowest tier, the bottom division, played teams like Accrington Stanley and Wrexham and Halifax and Scunthorpe and Grimsby, and I've been to all these places. I've had great fun travelling up and down, watching the Bees play. I've seen some terrible football. And so, and as Brentford fans, because also Brentford is a small town in London, probably the closest town to the airport. Like here, if you were sitting here, Brentford would be kind of like about 2 or 3 miles down the road there. It's like the same equivalent, And you don't support Brentford as a glory fan. You don't. In those days, you support Brentford mainly because it's the closest club to you. And I was brought up to support the closest club to you. It doesn't matter how good or bad they are. So technically, I could have supported Chelsea, because they're in West London as well. There's 4 teams in West London, or 4 league teams in West London. Chelsea, the F word, which I can't even mention. I can't mention that one. You know what I'm saying? They're in West London, and also QPR, which were, when I was young, they were actually they were top flight, so they were a big side. So a lot of the people that I knew actually supported QPR. But for me, I'm like, well, QPR is maybe 2 miles away. Brentford is like 0.8 of a mile away. I've got to support Brentford. So you support them. You saw some terrible football, but then you just get in with the crowd and the crew, and you watch your matches. You go up and down the country, and then you got into it, and then we just realised it wasn't really about the football. It was about your community, and so we got a phrase that Brentford kicked the football out of football, because the football actually ruins the game. So it's normally about the pre-match, the post-match, and then if you get something good in between, which is the match itself, it's good. But normally, when we're in the 3rd division, the 4th division, the game was so terrible. You just half the time you didn't even turn up to the game. You travel like 5 hours to go to Wrexham or something like that, and then you'll still be in the pub at sort of kind of like 4 o'clock, 4:15. They think, oh no, we run down and go and catch the last 15 minutes of the game. But it kind of was a little bit kind of irrelevant. It just tied you together. But obviously things have changed over the years.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So things have changed, and we've seen how Matthew Benham, who came in, we were literally on the bank of, literally on the verge of bankruptcy. We had a couple of managers and owners that have come in. You've seen what's happening in football at the moment now. In England, they're still trying to get the fit and proper tests properly sorted. They're trying to get an independent people in between the authorities and the clubs to make sure that shenanigans doesn't happen within football clubs, but shenanigans afoot was happening within clubs, and we had shenanigans afoot. We had an owner that came in who spent loads of money, and we're thinking this is great. We're in the 4th division. He was buying players who are probably on the equivalent now of we're spending sort of like 15 million, sort of 20 million on them, the equivalent of in those days. And we thought, this is great, we're the money bags of it. And then we realised that the situation was that it was all our money, and he was spending our money, and he had all these things, and all of a sudden we were as soon as he got upset because we didn't do as well as he thought, he pulled the plug, and then we were in trouble. And then all of a sudden, next minute, it's like, we were out there and we had to have buckets outside with buckets. The fans had to try and save the club. So we were literally on the verge of extinction at one stage. We were also on the verge of dropping out the Football League as well, because we just hadn't enough money for players. Terry Butcher came in, terrible manager. And we were awful. It was all over for us. And then Matthew Benham, the current owner, came in, threw a little bit of money into the club. I say a little bit, a few £1 million here or there, but said, I'll throw the money in, and you sort yourselves out, pay me back when you're done. 5 years, pay me back. He goes, if in 5 years you haven't, it's interest free. After 5 years, and and you do what you have to do, just pay me back the 5 million. I'm done. So after about 2 years, he put in about 20 million, and they just sort of went to him, actually, do you want to actually just buy the club? So he went, all right then. So he bought the club, and since he bought the club, this is where we are now got to now. It's taken us 10 years, but he's planned it meticulously over that time. He's a Brentford fan through and through. He used to bunk off school to go and watch games. Nottingham Forest, I think it was. He bunked off school to go and watch us play Nottingham Forest when they were European champions, and we played them in the League Cup. I remember doing that as well. Got on a special train to go to that match. It took us about 8 hours to get there. It was a nightmare, and about 9 hours to get back. But he did that. He's a proper hardcore Brentford fan, but he's put his money in, and he's involved in the stats side of things. Some people may or may not know about that. Just read up on it. Brentford and the stats. So he owns a stats company. So he's just taken all his knowledge from the stats side of things, thrown it into our club, and it's taken a while for people to accept it. But over a number of years, over about 6, 8, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, he's gradually brought in the staff and the players and everything like that to actually make our club who we are. And we find players that out of nowhere that people have never heard of, and we buy them for relatively small amounts of money, and then unfortunately, because we're Brentford, when they become good, then people come in and then they buy them for large amounts of money. But the club doesn't seem that fussed about it. They go, that's cool, we'll just take that money and reinvest it in new players. So that's what they're doing, and they've been successful in doing that. As fans, we're always a bit nervous that they're going to hit a dud player every now and again. So you sell like your Ollie Watkins, and then you come up with a dud. But no, they came up with Ivan Toney, and Neil Balpay, they sold him and they come up with Ollie Watkins. So they've always seemed to have found the formula, but I'm saying they're going to come up with a dud one time, and the fans need to be patient, because the fact is that they've done really well so far, and you can't have a 100% record. That's not going to happen. Somewhere down the line there's going to be something that's just not going to be quite right, and I'm just a little bit nervous. We've got next season coming up. We've got the window coming up next season. I think a few people are looking at a few of our players. I mean, Ivan Toney, he'd be a great player for a number of teams out there. He's scored a lot of penalties, but you've got to watch him play.
Yes.
Somebody's been sitting there and watching the videos of Ivan Toney play, and they know about him. If he goes, then it'll be interesting to see what we're going to have to do to try and replace him, because obviously we bought him for £5 million.
Yes.
We'll sell him for over £50 million. I don't want him to go, but we're going to have to replace him. And you can't replace that player with another £5 million probably, because it's going to take time for them to develop and everything like that. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely agreed. And so, just to ask you again now, besides Sky Sports, where can we find you as well?
So that's right. You want to find it. So Besotted. So I was talking about that's what you've done back in the day. We started doing it. Besotted is the fanzine, which is started selling fanzines by the side of the road. Started that in the early 90s. A guy called Dave Lane started that. I had an unofficial travel club, and then we kind of merged, and I've been doing Besotted since then. But now Besotted's turned into a blog, so you catch it besotted.com or at Besotted. That's BEESOTD. Or also you catch our podcast, prideofwest.london, and you're on this week's podcast, which is the Man United podcast, which was actually a special international podcast. Everyone on it was international, all international fans Brentford fans from Tasmania, Hong Kong, Washington, Holland, Mexico. Honestly, it's a mad podcast. And then we got you representing the American Man United fans as well. And then we got Andy Mitten from United We Stand, who is the only UK person on the podcast. It's gone down really, really well. It's quite a chunky listen, but it's definitely worth checking out. Just checking it out, because you'll get a live vibe about what we're about, what this is about. We talk about Man United, we talk about the Tottenham game, we talk about Brentford, and you get a real feel for what we're about. So you'll get, like I said to you, prideofwest.london, and also Besotted, which is besotted.com, or at Besotted on Twitter.
Thank you so much. And so now on to the match for tomorrow that we're all waiting for right now. Personally, I'm going to sound like a broken record by saying this. I think your team has goals in it tomorrow. I think your team is going to score twice on our defense tomorrow. You mentioned him already, Ivan Toney. To me, he's a danger man, but he's not going to be the biggest danger man in my opinion. I think it's actually be Eriksson, because Eriksson is going to unlock our defense. He's going to draw our defenders up forward, and he's going to send in runs. And I think Tony's going to get on one or two of those. How are you feeling about tomorrow's match?
I'll be honest with you. Obviously, I'm looking forward to going to the match tomorrow. But we call it. Some of these games are a free hit, which means that the result for us. There's a lot of pressure off for the result. We went for 2 months where we didn't win. We lost pretty much every game for 2 months. At that time, I wasn't nervous about us going down, but I know a lot of Brentford fans were, and that's because I just knew that we had a lot of injuries. In particular, David Rayo, our goalkeeper, who's an unbelievable keeper. He's the one that stepped in for Spain instead of De Gea. Honestly, he's a great keeper, and you watch him, his distribution is on the next level. So him being out for 4 months absolutely smashed us to pieces. But because I knew that he was coming back and other players were coming back, I wasn't worried about the relegation thing. I thought we'd be okay. And as it goes, we're doing okay, so which is fine. Coming back to your point here now is that if we've got our first 11, our top first 11, then we're there's a fly just drinking my beer in there. I'm saying, look at that. There you go. All right, Oh no, I won't be sipping that now.
Oh no!
But if we got our first 11 out, we're a great side. As soon as we start losing some players from our first 11, we're not saying we're a bad side, but there can be cracks forming in there. Saying that, when we played against Tottenham, we had 3 key first team players out, but the ones who stood in were unbelievable. Like, what I'm saying. So you're talking about key players. First of all, we've got Ethan Pinnock, who's a great player. I think he's going to be out for this game as well. Aya, another central defender, he's another key player for us. He was out against Tottenham, but I think he might be coming back for this game as well. He's a Rolls Royce defender, as you say, ball at his feet, runs out. You find him in the opposition penalty area, so he's like a big key player for us. And we had Pontus Jansson was out as well, I think, and so we had 3 defenders out as well. So Pontus was injured. I'm not sure what's going to happen with him, so we kind of see what's happening there. But on the flip side of it, for Christian Eriksen, since he's come in, I tried to actually kind of not focus on Christian too much, because he's a great player, but what the media have done very lazily, they've just said, oh, Christian Eriksen's turned your season around. And I can tell you this for a fact, that we were good enough to be where we are without Christian, but Christian's just added things on another level. And it's his calmness on the ball, his ability to see passes, his ability just to do certain things which a man of his experience can do. And I'll tell you something, that has been a real eye-opener for us. And also, he's helped to bring players around him to another level. So Ivan Toney does so much work. He's on the wing, he's tracking back, he's defending, he's all over the place. But we're thinking, Ivan Toney can think, actually, maybe I could just sit in the area and actually do my job, which is trying to put the ball in the back of the net. Which I think this is quite, as you've seen him, as he's done. Eriksson puts a cross in, bang, Ivan Toney back of the net. So this, for me, has been a real revelation for Brentford, because we know the type of player that we've been missing. And if Christian Eriksen doesn't rejoin us next season, which it's highly likely that he might not do, because he's a great player, I think for Brentford at least we know that we've had a player within the mix that we know we need somebody like that, and they'll get their stats people out hopefully and be going around the world and trying to find somebody else like him in the team. But Ivan Toney's great, Brian Mbeumo's great. Brian Mbeumo, check him out as well. He's hit the post, the woodwork, I think 8 times this season. The player who's hit the woodwork the most times this season. There's all sorts of flies flying around this season, but he's a very intelligent player. He just needs to kind of bend his shot a little to the right or to the left or below the crossbar so that he can score a few more goals, because he hasn't scored as many goals as he could do. But he's a tricky player. But we got some really good and exciting players. But I'll be honest with you, I'm just happy to be, let's say here or back in London, playing football, watching teams come down to our new stadium, our tiny little stadium, come down to Brentford, you can have beers, home and away fans can drink, there's no problems with bouncers or any of that nonsense, we don't do that. We're just enjoying life in the Premier League.
Definitely, and I have to say congratulations right now on your season in the Premier League. Yes, I'm definitely looking forward to many more years of seeing you all in the Premier League as well too. So, is there anybody from United that you are worried about? Well, besides the obvious, besides Ronaldo, is anybody you're really worried about?
No, but I'll tell you something. I'm gonna have to say Ronaldo because it sounds really obvious, and you're going, Ronaldo. But the thing about it is that we do stats quite a lot. And if you check out our podcast, Pride of West London, we got this guy called Will Alsop. He lives in Manchester. He's a student in Manchester, and he's a proper, he knows all his statistics and everything, And so he was statistically going through the game, and he's done that, like I said, on the podcast this week. And he talked about the fact that Ronaldo, without a shadow of a doubt, is your number one danger person. Because what's happened is that if you create high quality chances, some people hate XG, I know, but this is what's made Brentford where we are. So we're not going to apologise about it. But if you create high quality chances with Ronaldo there, he will put the ball in the back of the net. I think he's delivered, and his XG is something like, say for example, if it's XG's 8.5, he scored 9 goals or something like that. So he's almost like slightly over delivered what he's expected to do. So basically, you get some strikers who you get it and they'll deliver half or they'll deliver a third, but he's on it. So the fact is that Brentford know their game is that you can't allow him to get any opportunities in and around the box, because if he does, he will score them 100%. Also, the interesting thing is he talked about it because Harry Maguire's getting a bit of grief. I think maybe from your fans or from other fans. I'm not quite sure where the grief is coming from, but he's saying actually when they're looking at on the statistical side, none of your central defenders are actually kind of making mistakes that cause any goals directly. So he's kind of sort of saying that maybe there's a little bit of unfair kind of grief that's been actually given for people like Maguire and stuff like that, which is interesting when you see things through different people's eyes, because as fans we sit down there and emotionally you go and you start pointing things out, but then it's quite interesting where people tell you other things. You don't have to take it as gospel, but it's just another interesting viewpoint. So like I said to you, for me, listen, you've got a great team, you've got some great players, and you know that, and I know that, and we'd be stupid, we'd be fools. When you played us, first half we should have beaten you, 100%. You'll say that?
Yes.
But we didn't put the balls in the back of the net. Second half you came around, turned it around, bang, bang, see you later. You had the chances and you scored, and we put our hands up and said, well, if you're going to win, you're going to have to sort it out in the first half. So we know, playing against United, we need to be 100% on the ball, because you can absolutely punish us, and players who you think aren't on the money, that's on your level of on the money. We will say, well, I'll tell you something, if you ain't feeling them, just send them over to us, mate. we'll put them in our side and we'll be fine,
So finally now, I gotta ask, what is your score prediction for the match? I'm thinking it's gonna be a 2-2 draw. I think Tony's gonna be on the score sheet. I think Ronaldo's going to be on at least once, and possibly Alango will score for us as well too.
So again, on our podcast, and I've done this score prediction just because I've gone on a bit of a mad one recently. Not a mad one, but I've put some predictions out there, and the first one that I did, which is out there, I said we're going to beat Chelsea, and that was a time when we were kind of like, and everyone just laughed at me, said, what you saying? I said, listen, I believe that we're going to beat either Chelsea or Tottenham, but I think we'll beat Chelsea because there's going to be one really weird result that's going to happen in the back end of the season, something that no one's going to expect, and I said it's going to be Chelsea. So I got that right. So since then I've been trying to throw the positivity in. So on our podcast this week, I predicted Brentford to win 2-0, and again, it's not because there's a disrespect to Man United. I'm just thinking we've got nothing to lose, where there's absolutely no pressure on us. We're going down there, we're going to have some fun. 3,000 Brentford fans coming down there, going to sing our hearts out, and listen, we're going to see if we can take our chances. We had a number of games where we probably should have got results and we didn't do, and we didn't win these games, or we drew them, but mostly we lost those games, and I think sometimes that has to turn itself on its head. So maybe it's going to be this game.
Billy, thank you so much again for your time. I hope you have a safe flight to England, and I hope you have, well, I shouldn't say too good of a time at Old Trafford, but I hope you enjoy your time there as well. It's been a pleasure.
Listen, I really appreciate you having me on the show, all the Man United fans and everyone out there. Listen, just enjoy yourselves, enjoy the game. Listen, if we lose, I don't really care, man. Me and my mates are going down to Manchester. We've got a night out there as well. We're going to just enjoy ourselves. As we say, kick football out of football. You know, sometimes the football spoils the day out at football, you know what I'm saying? So we're going to enjoy ourselves, win or lose.
Thank you so much, and let's go United.